Right now, I want to give any of you who have, if you've got a question or a comment or a thought coming out of this conversation, raise your hand and I'll try to come to you. Okay.
I'm Jasleen Kaur.
Kaur, yeah.
I'm a student at Marquette, so just like 9 minutes up. I feel like nowadays when we talk about race in a conversation, it becomes something that is kind of weaponized, as we've talked about before, and it's very easy for people to attack one another for their own personal experiences. And I guess my sort of question would be how to go about that in a manner where you don't kind of say that another person is wrong for their experience, and also recognize and bring race into the conversation and recognize that it's true.
Is there a way to talk about race without it becoming charged? I think that's what you're saying. Ted, what would you respond?
Yeah, it's tough, and maybe I'll answer quickly in two ways. So one, earlier it came up, we were talking about Donald Trump and racism, that sort of thing. It is true that when Donald Trump was in office, he funded HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, and even increased the level over previous years, as every president has done for decades. It is also true that Donald Trump signed the First Step Act, which reformed federal prisons and allowed some people, based on good behavior and education, et cetera, to go home early. It is also true that Donald Trump looked at perhaps the first woman to become president, and perhaps the second black person to become president, to say she turned black just recently. It is also true that Donald Trump looked at America and said, when they see my mugshot, that means more black people will want to vote for me. So in this mix of this like really odd way of how do you measure this guy, in our day-to-day conversations, my mantra is, it's from public policy, basically to be hard on institutions and soft on people. And so in your day-to-day conversations, when talking about race, talk about institutions, structures, systems, processes, and not personal attacks. And also don't sort of be a vessel for other people's personal attacks. And when it comes to how people feel about race in America, be a compassionate listener, as long as you feel safe, you're feeling respected, but be compassionate in people's views, because it may come from a place, they may not know anyone. Who is of different races, different cultures, ethnicities, different places where they're born. But that's my mantra. Treat people with compassion and be hard on the structures, and democracy can handle it. Our government can handle it if we're hard on them, but when we're hard on each other, it creates divisions that have repercussions.
Is that helpful? You mentioned Penny Petrozinski when I came to you that you have family who have accused you or suggested that you may be racist because you're supporting Donald Trump. How do you deal with that?
Just when you mention Trump's name, you're automatically considered racist. And from what I gather with a lot of Trump when he talks, he is trying to get the media's attention a lot of times, and he might go about things kind of the wrong way, where he wants the news to just be putting his name out there, and he definitely gets that. And then he tries to specify, different things then of what he's doing for the black community and everything. And he might go about it the wrong way, but that's how he catches the media's attention, I do believe.
Is there a way to talk about race in this election without talking about Donald Trump? Anybody want to? Trying to think who's got a hand up. Yes, we haven't. I'm going to turn to you because we haven't heard from you. And tell us your name and where you're from. Stand up.
Oh, yes. My name is Lauren Sanders. I'm from Brookfield, Wisconsin. So I feel like my situation's a little unique. Brookfield, that area, tends to be a little bit more conservative, people think. I am liberal. Very liberal, I consider myself, and I am one of those that raised my hand when you said, would you stand your ground in principle? I am married to a black man. We have 3 mixed race children in Brookfield, which is about less than 2%. So it's a unique perspective that I get there, and I will say I understand where you're coming from in a sense, because I kind of go by that whole philosophy of you never know how ugly the world is, or how ugly the world can be until you're raising children. And my son, my oldest, who's 7, he was a little bit under, I think he was about 9 months when George Floyd happened, and I looked at things a lot differently. And I looked at people different. And I understand that some people say, you know, that the Republican Party isn't always racist. But there's been endorsements by the Grand Wizard of the KKK. How can I raise my children to look at this person as a leader? You know, I can't do that, and I want to do that. I want my children to aspire to be the President of the United States, right? We are potentially electing the first minority woman as a president, and I want my children to see that that's a possibility. But on the other side, they see racism spewed. I'm white, right? I want my children to be able to identify and be proud of who they are all around. And the whole colorblind philosophy that people like to spew in terms of that makes them good because everybody's the same. I don't want that because it's not a reality. It's not a reality. And also, I don't want that colorblind mentality. That is something that is that's years back mentality. You know, I want my children to feel proud of their color because their color is who they are. It's their culture, it's their background, it's their ancestry, and it's important to me, you know? And so when I think about a party and people who are voting for somebody who has made very racist remarks, that's number one to me because it's my children and it's their safety, it's their mentality, it's me standing up against something that I believe is wrong, a way to speak about people. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, a number of people had hands up around here. We're going to try to move around and recognize some folks who haven't had a chance to bring up a concern that you have. Yes.
Hi,
Tell us your name and where you're
I'm
from.
Bara Omari. I live in Bayside. I teach English to speakers of other languages at MATC. As someone who teaches immigrants and refugees locally, we have students and community members that come from all over the world, and they are here because they've run away from a really bad situation. They're being persecuted because of the color of their skin or their religion. And so, interestingly enough, often when they come to us as faculty, they always say, America's really scary. I didn't want to come here. I was afraid for the students who are Muslims. They always say, I was afraid to have my sister come here because she wears a hijab, but then I see you as an instructor and it's safe. Some students will say, teacher, I live in the Bang Bang, so I can't take the bus. So what we generally like to do is really focus on the community. Specifically, when we start with MATC, we talk about our Student Resource Center that is fully equipped with partnership with the Hunger Task Force, with the Diaper Mission. We walk them over there. They can get help with their groceries, that someone will come to their home and help them apply for food share. They can get diapers. So they see in one set, okay, here are these faculty, people who are being really nice to me, but also these systems that are in place that are helping me. And then from there, we also help collaborate with other organizations. So we take them on field trips to the museum, to the Milwaukee Public Museum.
And these are a combination of private and government funded
Mm-hmm.
programs.
We take them to the public library. Someone comes in they make library cards for us in class. We walk them over to the public library right down the street. We go to the Milwaukee Public Museum on free days. And so we explain to them that a lot of these things are government entities, whether it was Donald Trump or Barack Obama or George Bush. A lot of people helped put systems in place that actually make America the dream. The reason that you came here, it's not the bang bang or the scary place that a lot of them were afraid of. And so that really helps us to talk about, you know, their backgrounds and see that this is a place that actually does care about them, contrary to what they see about themselves on TV.
That's a valuable perspective. Thank you. Thank you. Moving around, I want to hit on any other topic anybody else wants to bring up that we haven't touched on. Please remind us of your name and where you live, where you're from.
My name is Rich Eng. I'm from New Berlin, Wisconsin. So my question to the panel on another topic would be, what do you think about what was raised over there about this potential issue of open, nonpartisan primaries to be able to address the politics, not the policies, but the politics of our political class and leadership? Final Five voting in particular.
Open primaries. And by the way, this is something that Crossroads actually reported on. We went to Alaska to look at their reform primary system, which are open, and we're not sure it's going to survive on the ballot this go around. But what do you think, Charlie, about open?
I wish I could make this a more interesting topic because, but I'm nerded out on this because I do think that there are very, very few magic bullets. There are no magic bullets. But there are ways of sort of breaking this status quo, and this is one of them: ranked choice voting or the jungle primaries, to basically require politicians to talk to people of a wide range of beliefs, as opposed to, as the audience member mentioned, just simply appealing to the most extreme elements. I mean, right now, you could have 20% of the electorate actually choose who represents them, because all you need to do is win a low turnout primary, and then because the districts are the way they are. But with ranked choice voting, I think you will change the behavior and the culture of our politics, the behavior of our politicians and the culture of our politics. So it's an excellent idea.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, my name is Al Hamden. I'm a company executive, and my question is about elections.
And where do you live?
Franklin,
Okay.
Wisconsin. I'm an immigrant. I came here to Marquette when I was 20 years old. Been here 36 years. My question really is about, what about public financing of elections? I've always thought it was really weird for politicians to always raise money and be beholden really to the special interest. I've always thought that was kind of a conflict of interest to the public. And I don't know how you get your way around it. I know, God bless him, John McCain, wanted to do campaign finance reform, and I think the Supreme Court basically said that, companies are people, and they can donate as much as they want. And I just find it hard to believe that somebody that takes money from somebody is gonna be, call it straight, if you will. So what about, giving people a set amount of money from the taxpayers so we can have good people run, and they're beholden to the people, not really to the companies or governments.
Winding the Supreme Court decision back, in other words.
Correct.
Undoing the Supreme. Kathy, do you want to weigh in on that?
Sure, yeah, it's a great idea. Many other countries do it, right? I think it's a huge uphill battle here to put it into place, because politicians want to win, right? And they are really loath to give up the current system. That's what we know. And there's also just a huge industry around campaign consulting. There are many people invested in the amount of money that's in, they make money from the amount of money we pour into campaigns. So there's lots of things we'd have to overcome, but I think it's a great idea.
Okay. One different topic we're looking for, I'm trying to recognize. Yes. Tell us your name and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Danielle, and I'm from Elm Grove. I grew up in Tosa. I also went to Marquette. We got a lot of Marquette alums around here.
Right.
And I have 3 young kids. I have a 7-year-old, an almost 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And I think one of the things that we haven't really addressed is what will keep our kids safe. We've heard a lot of rhetoric about, I'm afraid of seeing my kids seeing a drag queen, which I have taken my kids to Drag Queen Story Hour. It is like going to any other princess party. Like, there is nothing sexual about a drag event that is geared towards children. If you would take your kids to see Peter Pan the musical on Broadway, Mary Martin played Peter Pan in the 1950s. There is nothing scary about it. What is scary is the idea that I think every single day when I drop my kids at school, will I see them come home, or will someone come into the school and shoot them? And I also think, as my kids get older, will they be made to feel othered because people were afraid of their self-expression, and so then they will harm themselves? My dad died of suicide about 11 years ago.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And he was very easily able to access a gun in this state, despite having a history of mental illness. So when I think of things that are scary, when I put my kids to bed at night, I'm not afraid of a drag queen story hour. I'm afraid of what's actually going to happen to them. I'm afraid of what their planet will look like in the next 20 years because we're not taking care of it. And I think that the rhetoric that we have that makes these things seem scary because they're hot button issues are, and I will say, primarily on the right. I am a liberal person, I am a Democrat, but I do see a lot of different news sources, and I am not seeing the type of fear-mongering in any other news source than particularly right-wing news sources, and it is causing us to not really focus on the issues that are going to keep our kids safe.
Could I respond
Thank you
to
for your, and I want to, and I also want to give anybody in the audience who wants to speak in response to that. She was talking about right-wing news sources. Anybody want to speak from a Republican perspective in response to that?
My name is Keith Helwig. I got to make an admission up front. I'm a conservative, I'm a police officer, and I understand your concerns about child safety. I think one of the things, though, you're talking about fear-mongering, and this is probably going to cause a little dissension with certain people in the group. One of the biggest fear-mongering tactics right now is Project 2025. How many people here have heard of Project 2025? Everybody here has heard of Project 2025. The Republican Party and Donald Trump in particular have denounced Project 2025. Yet every commercial I see brings up Project 2025. This is what the Republicans are going to do. This is how it's going to be. You won't be able to go to the doctor when you're pregnant because they're going to monitor you. Blunt terms, that's BS. That's not going to happen. If you look at the whole of Project 2025, which is being used to create fear among the Democrats and the liberals, it's never going to happen. You think the Congress is going to go along with that? The Senate, the Republicans, the House? We've got checks and balances to prevent things like that. So I think there's fear-mongering on both sides, but I see it more from the liberal side with Project 2025.
Charlie, I'm going to ask you to make a comment at this point before we finish.
Well, I wanted to go back to the comments about school safety and
Yes.
and guns, because this is one of the great dirty little secrets, I think, of American politics, is there is a vast consensus among Americans that we ought to have common sense limitations, that we ought to be much more afraid of our kids being shot, by an AR-15 in school than that they're going to read an inappropriate book. You look at the public opinion polls, and the numbers are through the roof, 80, 90%. People saying, let's have, universal background checks or red flag laws, various other things. And this is one of the areas where I think there is a much bigger common ground than we know, but the extremes drive the debate. I mean, I remember here in Wisconsin when the NRA was pushing for concealed carry without any training or permits. And they were pounding on the Republican legislature that anybody should be able to carry a gun without knowing how to use the gun. And the legislators thought that this was this big movement. And I remember as a talk show host opening up the phone lines to gun owners and said, what do you think about this? And overwhelmingly they said, it's crazy. I believe in gun safety. I want people to respect the Second Amendment. Having a bunch of yahoos go out with these guns. This is the case with the school shootings. What is it going to take to shock this country into saying, we have to agree on this one thing, that if our children are being killed in schools, that we as a society have to come up with a solution to it, as opposed to giving a veto to extreme organizations. And I do think that if you had conservative Republican politicians who stood up and said, you know what, I am for the Second Amendment, which I am for, but we have to change these laws. We have to make that a priority. I think that you would see a vast bipartisan consensus on that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've all been absolutely amazing. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your contribution, for your honesty, for your candor, for being willing to share your stories with us, some of them very painful. It means a lot. I mean, it's been just an unbelievably rich conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.